The studio lights on the view were brighter than usual that day. The chatter among the crew hinted something exciting was about to happen. The guest chair, reserved for Hollywood's most influential names, sat empty awaiting a man whose kindness often preceded his fame. Keanu Reeves. Backstage, Keanu waited quietly, sipping chamomile tea. His signature calmness wasn't an act, it was who he was. A man who walked through life with a kind of peaceful defiance, untouched by the arrogance celebrity could bring. And today, he'd be walking into one of daytime television's most combative spaces. Inside the studio, the crowd erupted when the stage manager announced his name. Keanu strolled in wearing a worn gray blazer over a simple black shirt and jeans. Not flashy, not scripted, just Keanu. Joy Behar, known for her unapologetically blunt demeanor, leaned forward as he took his seat. She raised her eyebrows, as if preparing for a match. She said with a chuckle. She said with a chuckle. Never thought we'd have John Wick himself on a show about hot topics in politics. The audience laughed lightly. Keanu smiled, brushing the comment aside with grace. Well, I'm happy to be here, he replied calmly. Even if I'm better at dodging bullets than headlines. The panel launched into the usual back and forth. Questions about his upcoming movie, opinions on world events, and light jabs about his quiet nature. He answered with poise, but something shifted when Joy leaned in again, her voice dropping slightly in tone. You know, Keanu, you always come off like this, Zen monk of Hollywood, she said. Don't you think that's a bit of a cop-out? I mean, all this silence, humility. Isn't that just a way to avoid having real opinions? The room went quiet. Even Whoopi Goldberg looked over with surprise. Ano Navarro blinked, unsure whether to laugh or interject. The audience held its breath, and for a moment, even the air in the studio seemed still. Keanu's face didn't twitch. No sign of offense. No flicker of ego. He waited, thoughtfully. Then finally he spoke. You know, Keanu began gently, his voice even and measured, when I was 15. My best friend drowned. While we were swimming in a lake in Canada, I tried to save him, but I couldn't. I was underwater too long, and he slipped away. After that, I didn't speak much for months. I wasn't avoiding the world. I just learned that silence sometimes says more than shouting ever could. Joy blinked. The studio was still. His voice was soft, but his words struck with the weight of 1,000 headlines. He continued, I've seen people I love get sick and die. I've walked through grief that made the world colorless. And in those moments, I learned that humility isn't a mask, it's a survival tool. Being kind, being still, it's not a cop-out, it's joy. It's how I choose to stay human in a world that wants us all to scream louder than each other. The audience gasped softly. Keanu leaned back, hands resting gently in his lap. I don't need to speak over anyone to matter. I don't need to prove my worth with noise. I believe in showing up, listening, helping, and loving quietly if I must. And if that looks like avoidance to you, then maybe we just define courage differently. Oh. Joy Behar sat stunned. For the first time in years, she seemed unsure how to respond. Whoopi gave a low whistle, breaking the silence. Damn, she muttered, grinning. That's the realest thing we've heard on this show in a long time. The audience stood to its feet in applause. Keanu nodded respectfully, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but accepting it anyway. After the commercial break, the tone shifted. Joy returned, her usual sharpness softened. She looked at Keanu, this time not as a celebrity, but as a human being. You know, Keanu, she said, I may come off a little brash, but I respect what you just said. Truly, I think the world needs more of what you're carrying. Keanu smiled. Thank you. It means a lot. Later, backstage, one of the younger crew members approached him. She looked nervous. Mr. Reeves, can I just say, that story about your friend? I lost my brother in a car crash last year. Hearing you made me feel less alone. Keanu didn't hesitate. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone. Promise. She burst into tears, and he stayed with her, holding space with the same stillness that had unsettled Joy Behar. But this time, that silence comforted, that humility healed. Word of the moment went viral. Social media was ablaze. Keanu shuts down Behar with heart. A masterclass in quiet strength. Keanu Reeves proves kindness is never weakness. Back at the View, the crew couldn't stop talking about what they'd witnessed. In a place that thrived on confrontation, A man had walked in with nothing but gentleness and changed the air in the room. Later that day, Keanu's team offered him a car, but he politely declined. "I think I'll walk," he said, sliding his bag over his shoulder. As he exited the studio, he paused, turned back to the intern who had brought him tea earlier, and said, "You were really kind to me." The intern smiled, overwhelmed. "It's easy to be kind to someone like you." He grinned. "It's easy to be kind when someone's kind first. Let's just keep it going." He walked off into the gray New York afternoon, his pace unhurried, his heart unchanged. And on that day, the world saw once again that Keanu Reeves wasn't just a movie star. He was proof that kindness, even on the loudest stages, speaks loudest of all. 3 days after the show aired, the clip of Keanu's appearance had racked up over 27 million views on YouTube. Comments poured in by the thousands. This man just taught the whole world a lesson in empathy. Keanu Reeves didn't storm out, he silently conquered. But while the internet marveled, Keanu went back to living as he always did, quietly, simply. He wasn't chasing headlines. In fact, he hadn't even watched the full episode. He was back in LA, walking through a small bookstore in Silver Lake when his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. At first, he let it go to voicemail, but then it buzzed again. This time he answered. "Hello? Mr. Reeves. This is Melinda from The View. Joy asked me to call you." He paused. "Oh, is everything all right?" She just wanted to speak with you privately. Would you have a moment?" "Curious," Keanu agreed. A few minutes later, Joy Behar's familiar voice came on the line, less sharp, more sincere. "Keanu. Hey. I didn't expect you to answer." "Hi, Joy. Good to hear from you. Everything okay?" There was a silence on the line before she spoke. "Look, I've been thinking about what you said on the show. I've been thinking about how I came at you. I realize now I've spent most of my career mistaking volume for truth, and I think I owe you more than just a thank you on air." Keanu said nothing, letting her continue. "My sister passed away last year," she admitted. "Cancer. We didn't part on good terms, and I've carried that weight. I've been loud ever since, maybe trying to drown that out. You reminded me that silence isn't weakness, that sometimes stillness is strength." Keanu's voice softened. "I'm really sorry for your loss, Joy." "Thank you," she replied, "and thank you for not reacting with ego. You could have humiliated me on live TV, but you didn't." He smiled gently, though she couldn't see it. "That's never been my style." Joy laughed. "Yeah, that's why it hit me so hard." They spoke for another 15 minutes, less like television colleagues, more like two people sharing humanity across invisible lines. When the call ended, Keanu stood quietly in the bookstore, holding a first-edition copy of a Tolstoy novel. He bought it, then left a note inside. "To the reader, may this book remind you that every soul fights a quiet battle. Be gentle." He handed it to the cashier. "Give this to the next person who looks like they need it." The cashier, startled, blinked. Keanu smiled. "Yeah, just pass it forward." Meanwhile, back at The View, the episode had sparked more than just online buzz. The producers received thousands of letters from viewers. One came from a high school principal in Georgia, who played the clip for his students during a morning assembly. Another came from a young man in recovery who wrote, "Keanu's story made me believe again in the quiet voices inside me. I don't have to shout to matter." Even the network executives noticed. A producer called Keanu's agent and asked if he'd return for a special episode about kindness, empathy, and the quiet heroes of the world. Keanu, true to form, politely declined. "I appreciate it," he said, "but I think I've said what I needed to say." Instead, he donated anonymously to a mental health nonprofit and asked for the funds to be used for grief counseling. Back in the city, Joy Behar wasn't done processing what happened. On the next episode of The View, she opened with an unusual monologue. "I want to say something today," she began. 3 days ago, I questioned a guest on this show, Keanu Reeves, in a way I thought was tough journalism. Turns out it was just tough. On him, on me, on everyone. The audience quieted. "Mr. Reeves taught me and many of you that strength doesn't always sound like shouting. That compassion doesn't have to come wrapped in applause. Sometimes the people who speak the least carry the most." She paused, then added, "So today, We're dedicating this episode to the people who carry their pain with grace, who lead with love instead of volume. And I want to thank Keanu Reeves for reminding me of the kind of person I still want to be. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. That day, dozens of guests shared their own stories. Teachers, first responders, social workers, and volunteers. All of them people who moved the world quietly, just like Keanu. Weeks passed. Keanu returned to the set of his latest film in Prague. But the ripple he left behind in that New York studio didn't fade. Fans began to emulate his kindness, buying coffee for strangers, leaving thoughtful notes in books, volunteering at shelters, starting online challenges about quiet acts of kindness. A trending hashtag emerged. Not because he was famous, but because he reminded everyone that it was okay to be gentle in a loud world. One day, Joy Behar received a package at the View studio. It was a framed photo of a tree standing alone in a quiet field, sunlight streaming through its leaves. There was no note, just one quote engraved on the bottom. Even the softest voice can echo through eternity. KR, she smiled. And for once, she didn't say a word.